You're listening to the Long Game Podcast. I'm your host, Sandra Scaiano. Things with launch and promotions and courses and memberships, they can get overwhelming. Like, let's just say that, right? But I'm into taming that. And when it comes to course and membership launches, there are a lot of moving parts. There are sales pages and cart tech and emails and social posts and funky customized ideas that you come up with. And of course, expectations, right? There's all these expectations that all have to get spun into a specific timeline. So the details, they must be carefully considered, in order to ensure a successful launch or promotion or a successful season for your brand. And, when you launch a few times a year, you begin to do things over and over again. And it gives you the opportunity to get into a cadence, to get into a flow. You can build a system for yourself for each launch or season that becomes rhythmic. And one important aspect of the planning process is choosing the right tools, right? We're always talking about tools as entrepreneurs. And you might not believe what I'm going to share with you that I use to plan and run my client launches. I was reflecting on this flow of planning concept this past week as I put together a client calendar for the next several months. I like to create repeatable processes for brands. Doing so, it allows for comfort as we go through the seasons of the business. And it also allows for expansion. With a rhythm comes the capacity to add new ideas in. How do you create a rhythm though? In promoting and in launching? Well, that's what we're digging into today. In today's episode, the long game is launch, organization, and rhythm. Implementing a course or membership launch, they can span months and they can pull in so many moving parts, right? Sales pages, cart tech, emails, social post, funky customized ideas that you think of, and expectations. Always expectations. And they're all spun into this timeline or time frame. So staying organized is key to the launch flow. And being in a state of flow during a course launch or a promotion time or a busy season, it really means that you are in touch, you are engaged, and you can start to enjoy the process as you go through it. Oh, yes, you can. You can. And, the key to any launch time is a solid calendar. Mapping out the details on a calendar page allows for you to handle all of the tasks that you need to handle in stride. And here's the kicker. For my strategy clients, I plan and implement their launches on printed paper calendars. All right, I hear your collective gasp. In an age where we can schedule our entire lives on our phones, it may seem old-fashioned or even archaic to use a written calendar to plan everything out. But hear me out, because I am totally with you on the digital front. I'm a Google Calendar devotee. My business and personal life, completely runs by these color-coded notifications that I get sent. And I'll even pop in some to-dos in my calendar to make sure that I'm getting what I need to done. But I've got some theories on using a paper calendar for launch planning, and I've created systems around it that are really effective. And really, you got to listen. I run a lot of launches, and at times I run simultaneous launches. So having the calendar and written out and mapped out is really a great way to stay on top of what needs to be done in what time. All right, so first, let's tackle the concept of the calendar page as a mechanism for organization. So since things are very time-based in launching and promoting, it makes sense to have things laid out on a calendar. And I have tried other tools such as Trello and, Google Sheets in different ways. And Airtable, but now they are in support of what I do with the calendar page. There is nothing that works to keep you on track and mindful of things than looking at your launch or your promotion on a month's calendar page. Having that bird's eye view of the entire process, what's upcoming, what needs to be done today, that is invaluable. The calendar is the hub. So print it out by the month and have those empty little boxes to fill in with your process. And, I definitely want to talk about the written versus digital, because in my view, there are so many benefits to the written calendar, and these are pertinent to your success. So, I did just mention that you can get this more holistic view of your schedule, and of the whole process at a glance when you're using the paper calendar and you have the whole month printed out. It is just easier to get the big picture when the plan is written down in one place. And as we talk about this more, it's important to remember that there are these two phases when you are doing a launch or a promotion. There's that planning phase where you are mapping out the dates on the calendar. You're thinking through your process and you're building in that timing. Things are dependent on other things on the calendar. When should an email be sent in relation to something launching or another action happening? So doing this exercise in the past week for my client, it really was the inspiration for this episode because I was head down writing multiple months of the plan that we execute for the season, and everything builds upon itself and is in relation to the start date of the course. And, I map out the whole pre-course runway and promotion on the calendar as well. And with that, there are so many touch points from pre-course all the way through to like the early stages of the course opening and the course start, right? Like without a calendar, it would be so easy to miss something. And, in this planning phase, using the paper calendar, it forces me to slow down and really think and be strategic during the planning phase. I am more in touch with the plan when I map it out. And I'm not going to lie. Sometimes I got to print another sheet because I put something in the wrong box or when I went back, but that's okay. That's the beauty of it, right? That can happen too. All right. So the second phase that we need to be aware of with our calendars and launch and promotion times are, that phase of execution and implementation. And that's where you are actually following your plan. So I'm writing plans for next year now, right? I'm working months ahead and everything is planned out. Then there will come a time that I am executing in real time on those plans. And I literally look at the calendar at the start and the end of every day. I have my calendars at an easy glance right here on my desk, so I can plan my week and know what is upcoming. And I have these launch calendars for all of my clients, right? One calendar for each client. And that's how I keep track of them. And here's a perfect for instance of why. This past September, I had 2 clients launching signature programs within a week of each other, and then a third client launching 2 weeks later. So all the prep, all the promotion, all the items had to be done in a timely manner for each brand. And having that printed calendar for each project, it allowed for me to reference exactly what was happening in the life of each launch at any time. And I want to talk too about written versus digital for launch planning. That physical act of writing, it really helps us to engage with the content. I also think that when you use, and I have actually proven this through my experience with clients, but when you use a written calendar to review and you're able, and you are doing it more often, referring back to the calendars than if it's a digital calendar. If it's written, you're referring back to it more often. And, there are some great things about these digital reminders that can be cross-platform, and they're pretty amazing, right? But when you use a digital calendar for a launch, it means that I can swipe a notification away without any action. And like it goes into the ether, right? And I might not come back to it. So with these calendar plans on my desk, I refer to them often. And, that's actually a system I've created. Like I start the day and review the calendar and the notes and what actions need to be taken. And then I start and end each week with referring to the calendars so that I can stay engaged with what is upcoming as well. Now, I know one of the questions you may be thinking is, how do you share a paper calendar amongst your team? And yes, this is the biggest issue to navigate with this process. But, I have been doing launches for many years, and I have learned a few things along the way. And I'm going to tell you, every time I make a digital calendar for the team, it gets looked at rarely. Like we pull it up on a call and talk things through, and then it just goes away, right? Nobody refers to it. So, I find people still on the team email me questions that can be answered by looking at the calendar. And I really recommend that whoever is driving the launch, they're the ones to keep the calendar. For me, I send emails with launch action items for the week. This way, I'm the keeper of the timeline ultimately, and I'm letting the team know what they need to be aware of the week prior or what needs to be handled. And I'm doing this for, my clients, and I'm doing the bulk of the launch work. So I'm keeping the calendar. That makes sense. And for you and your business, figure out who the launch lead is and who will be keeping the calendar. It might be you as the business owner or your VA or team members, and they are keeping track of the launch action items. And another thing with that digital versus handwritten, there is just something so satisfying about physically crossing off an event once it's over. Seeing your month or week with X's or in my case, check marks. It's a great way to visually track your progress and to feel accomplished. I know you guys feel me on this. So it's really good to check it off the list. And note, I use check marks so that I can still read the items on the calendar. And that is the perfect segue into building rhythm. When you map out your entire launch runway on a written calendar, you can save these sheets and rebuild your next launch with the process that you have already created. As business owners, most of us, we have our brand calendars and we launch our programs at certain times of the year and the same times each year, right? So the first launch that you do, it's always the hardest, right? It's the one where you have to come up with all the ideas. You have to implement and create all of the content. You have to figure out all of the timing. But every subsequent launch, you should be doing a repeat and a tweaking of the process. I refer back to my previous handwritten calendars and remap out the launch, from year to year. And it is so on point that the timing is only off by a day or so now, due to the number of days in a month or what we're doing, right? If there's a leap year. So repeatable is key here. You can repeat what you track because you can remember it or you can refer to it. And this is what gets you into a rhythm. You begin to build on your own process. You don't have to write every email from scratch. The next time around, you can just, update an email or make it relevant to the season or timely to what you're discussing, or update the dates only. My calendars also, they tell me when to update course sequences, when to update course items for new cohorts, in addition to when to send those things. Like it is the whole process. And I pad that process, right? Like a week before, I am updating things before they are to open. So there's padding and time in there. If something comes up, right, I can do it the next day. But I'm prompted on my calendar to know to update that so something doesn't go out with the wrong date. And this is getting into a rhythm. When you refer back to your process and build on it, when you know what to create and when you know when to send things and more, you are freeing up your mind for more creative ideas, right? Space allows for creativity. And it's creating a rhythm that affords you to enjoy the process and to be able to introduce new components to your launch without feeling overwhelmed. Like, hey, here's an idea. Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's figure out where it fits, right? We have the capacity to handle that. So, we've talked about this before, that with each launch and with each promotion that you do, you should be taking notes and debriefing on the process. That way you can tweak as needed. Do you need another email in your sequence? Are you getting the same questions? So update your sales page or add an FAQ in there. And I want to be clear also that this calendar, it's a major component of the launch, but you also utilize other tools like Google Sheets for your tracking, or Trello can hold your creative assets even in an orderly fashion. I know there's a bunch of these productivity and tracking project management tools. I haven't found one that I like that is an all-in-one yet. So I like being able to say, hey, we're keeping the calendar here. We might have a link to a sheet there. Trello holds these assets so we can reuse them again there. All of that goes to keep working on your process, right? What's comfortable for you? There is no one way to do everything. You find the tools that work for you. But I've created a very successful system for implementation by using handwritten calendars for the launch. And when you keep working on your process, that is long game thinking. All right, everybody. I'll see you next week. Thanks for joining me today. You can access more information, links mentioned in this episode, and the show notes at thelonggamepodcast.net. If today's show connected with you in some way, please share it with your friends or hop on and leave a review. Both of these make a really big difference. All right, until next time, keep playing the long game.